from the question and answer. We have a summary.
Hello. Seems Dr. Kadambi has left the meeting, but she had given an overview of what we expect. At this point, I think Hussein can continue with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Cohen. Let me just share the presentation. I think everyone can have a look at that. Everyone is seeing the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, team. My name is Hussein Hanti, an M.Sc student from WMI, University of Nairobi. And my research topic is the assessment of land-based conflict in Tana River Delta, that is in Kenya. And my supervisors are Professor J.L. Mudhama and Professor David Mungai. And that is the topic of my research. So going straight to the introduction, as you all know that Tana River Delta is a global biodiversity hotspot, and it's a key biodiversity area, an important bird area, and a designated Ramsar site. A key biodiversity area in that we have a lot of species that are found within the Tana River Delta, and also it's the largest freshwater wetland system in Kenya. That's according to Nature Kenya 2012, Darwin's Initiative, and UNESCO 2010. So there's a lot of ecosystem diversification within the delta, especially due to the estuarine and the riverine ecosystem that is having a lot of species around it. So, however, this delta is facing several challenges involving competition for land-based resources, incompatible land use practices, where we have several land use existing within the same ecosystem. And we also have challenges of a loss of biodiversity due to diversification and degradation of the environment, rising poverty level, and the effects of the climate change have been felt within the Tana River Delta. So making the life within the delta unbearable. So in the problem statement, there have been land-based conflicts over the delta, which has led to deadly wars, which are disastrous consequences as demand for competing land use systems, natural resource, between natural resources
We apologize for the network issue. We should give Hussein just a few minutes for him to reconnect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Where was I when you lost me?
Maybe you could start from the introduction so that you go on.
Okay. From the introduction.
Yes, just go on from there.
So the Tana River Delta, as I said, is a global biodiversity hotspot, a key biodiversity area, and an important bird area, and as it designated Ramsar Site 2012, and as well as the largest freshwater ecosystem in Kenya. That is according to Nature Kenya and Darwin's Initiative and UNESCO 2010. However,
Mr. Hussein, we've lost you. We can't hear you. We are apologizing. Hussein is really having a network issue, but he should be logging in a short while. Kindly bear with us for today.
Bessie, hello.
Yes,
Where is
Tabitha.
he connecting from?
Tana River.
Wow. Okay, it's understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's just bear with him. I think the network is not so good on his part, but he should be joining shortly. Mr. Hussein, I will present your screen so that you can continue.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Prof.
Go ahead, Hussein. We are presenting your slides.
Thank you, Dr. Bessie. And, sorry for the network issue.
Proceed.
Can you share the slides, please?
It's presenting. It's on present.
Let me see. Let me see it from my side.
Yes, it's at introduction where you are at.
Dr. Kadambi, maybe you could try again. I cannot see it also on my side.
Okay.
The slides, please.
Are you able to see it now?
Yes, it's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. Put it on a slide. Put it on, yes.
All right. Go ahead.
So in the introduction,
Yes, go on.
so in the introduction, the Tana River Delta is a global biodiversity hotspot. We said it's a key biodiversity area and a designated Ramsar site that is in 2012, as well as the largest freshwater wetland system in Kenya. It's according to Nature Kenya, Ndawi's initiative, and UNESCO 2010. So, however,
We are doing okay.
however, the Delta is facing several challenges involved competition, that is in competition for land resources, incompatible land use practices, loss of biodiversity, degradation of the environment, and also rising poverty levels and climate change. So there's a lot of issues that are facing the Delta ecosystem that are related to climate change and also competition for land-based resources. So the next slide. On the problem statement, we had escalated levels of conflict due to demand for competing land uses, natural resources, and then the nature versus the natural use, land-based resource use. So these are becoming the issues that need to be addressed. The conflicts have been on the rise as a result of the increasing population, the competition for the available scarce resources, and the encroachment into the fragile deltaic ecosystem. So these conflicts will continue to be experienced in the Tana River Delta, despite the many attempts aimed at resolving and managing the conflicts by the government, by the NGOs, and by the community-based organizations. So next slide. Next slide, please.
It's on. Hello? Hussein, we can't hear you. Hussein,
Yes.
continue.
So the research objective, my main objective was the study is to assess the land-based conflict in Tana River Delta, with a key focus on evaluating the drivers in Tana River Delta, and also to examine the existing strategies of managing and resolution of the conflict. Thirdly, was to rank the strategies of the management and resolution of the conflict within the Tana River Delta according to the communal perspectives. Next slide.
It's on. Go on, Hussein. Hussein? Hussein?
So in the literature review, the world today is facing several complex challenges such as climate change, rapid urbanization, increased demand for natural resources, and human wildlife conflict, according to Palmer et al. 2009. The exploitation of these high-value natural resources has often been cited as key factor in triggering violent conflicts around the globe, further increasing competition over the diminishing natural resources. That is according to FT 2012. And globally, there have been increased population levels, and the projected population will reach around 10 billion by 2050, according to Sonta et al. 2015 and Wasigie and Matsumoto 2016. There is a projected increase in use of the land resources. These indicators of successful management and of natural resources have been contributed to peace, including establishment of standards and agreements and efforts at cooperation and management and conservation efforts. So as the population increases within the delta, and also the land use will increase, the land-based resources. The use of the land-based resources will also increase. So my study area is in Tana River Delta. You can see the county, and where the delta is where the county, the river itself enters the Indian Ocean, and it forms a deltaic ecosystem, the one shown in green. That is where the delta, it's around 130,000 acres. That is where we base our research. In the data collection, a survey research design was carried out through administration of 120 questionnaires. We did 8 SSIs, 5 key informant interviews, and 3 FGDs. The analysis was done through descriptive analysis, and the cross-tabulation, chi-square, Pearson's correlation, and one-way ANOVA was performed using MS Excel and MS and SPSS. So, going directly to the results, majority of the respondents were male at 67%, and age-wise, majority were between 18 to 35, that's around 39%. In tribal, the commons were the majority, that is 37. These are the farming communities, that's 7.5%. The pastoralists or monks were 32.5%. The Wardays and the workers, the minorities, were 10% and 7.5%, and the Giriamas were 5%. According to land size, majority of the respondents owned around 1 to 2 acres of land, that's at 40%, with those who owned around 5 acres were just and above were just 7%. Land ownership was majorly communal at 57%, while public land, those at public land such as ranches and government land were at 32%, and private ownership, those who had private land were around 11%. On the social demographics, education level, majority of the respondents had the primary level of education, as at 7.5%. 27 had none form of education. Secondary and tertiary were very few, with tertiary at 9%. Others forms of education, such as religious and madrasas, were at 4%. The majority of the respondents had low educational standards, that is at 37.5 for primary and 27.5 for no education. On the residency period, most of those who lived around the Tana River Delta, we had 5 to 10 years, that 33%, and those who lived more than 15 years at 20%. So most of them are locals that are there. Those who lived less than 5 years being just at 29%. On the evaluation of the drivers, the next slide, the key drivers were assessed, and it was found that land tenure system was ranked as the first driver using the mean and the SD, standard deviation. Land tenure issues include communal land ownership systems that needed to be addressed, the lack of documentation by the communal communities. They were less than 4% of the registered land in Tana. And then there were no proper land use systems. Those are the land tenure issues that were raised by the community. And the second driver was on climate change, which had issues about loss of biodiversity in the delta due to climate change, shrinking of the delta ecosystem, and also there were experiences of perennial flooding and change of climatic patterns, mostly in terms of rainfall and temperatures. So climate change was factored as the second driver to the conflict. The third was politics. Issues of politics that was discussed include unclear land or proper rights resulting from overlapping legislation. And politics was identified as a redistributive game that created winners and losers, leading to ethnic rivalry. The communities that had the leadership by then were the winners, and those ones who lost in election created the losers. So this has led to ethnic voting patterns between the pastoralists and the farmers, leading to instigation of political propaganda during campaign period and hate messages that have been
Hussein? Hussein, we've lost you.
Yes.
Hussein?
Hussein? Balance yako ya 142,500.
Hussein?
the drivers to
I think there is a
the third driver was around about the
Go on, Hussein. Hussein. Then proceed.
Okay. So let me be fast so that we can finish earlier. So
Yes.
the third driver was on politics, and then fourth was on armed communities and gangs such as the M.Sc. The fifth one was historical land injustices. The sixth was mega infrastructural projects that were existing within the Tana River Delta. And the seventh was unemployment. 8 was proliferation of small arms and light weapons, especially from the areas of Garissa County and Ijara areas. Next. So the resolution strategies was ranked by the communities, one being community peace meetings. Communal systems of resolution had high affinity towards the communities, such as the community peace meetings and the joint prayer sessions. We also had arresting of the instigators as a solution that was highly ranked by the communities. Mediation at number 4, and imposition of the curfew at number 5. Forceful disarmament of locals at number 6, and then setting up a commission of inquiry at number 7. Establishment of a new police post at number 8, and use of GSU or KDF at number 9, and 10 was other resolution strategies at number 10. So those are how the conflict resolution strategies were ranked. And ways of management, so that they can cope up with the conflicts, we had rehabilitation of the existing irrigation scheme, scoring 39%, with disarmament of the youth and also peace building among the communities, highly ranking, and also restocking, and finally use of courts and introduction of modern farming methods. So resolution strategies aimed at rehabilitation of the livelihood was highly chosen by the communities. Next. So when you associate the residency period and the conflict magnitude, you can see that the residents at 15 years in Tana River Delta and above had experienced high magnitude of around 83.3%, while those ones who had less than 5 years had experienced low magnitude of the conflict. So the longer the residents stay within the Delta, the more recurrent the conflicts occur, and hence why they have the the conflict magnitude are high when you are staying within the same area for those all years. Next. So in the chi-square, for association between the residency period and conflict, we had a chi-square value of Piso's chi-square value of 43.598. So we had a high association between the differential frequency of 6 and assumption significant, that is a two-sided significant, with an N value of 120 of the respondents. So between the education levels, they performed an ANOVA, and also between the groups were 31.55, the mean of squares were 31.55.598, with a differential frequency of 4 and a mean of squares of 788, with a significant of 0.00. Next slide. Next. The next.
Hussein? 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 Hussein?
So, on the conclusion, the land-based conflict is driven by an amalgamation of factors such as land tenure, climate change, and politics, land communities and gangs, and historical land injustices. So, the communal-based strategies such as joint community plans and community peacemaking had a high affinity to resolving the conflict around the delta, with key focus being the ownership of the strategies by the communities. On the recommendation, we recommend establishment of proper land use planning and land use system, effective management of the ecosystem to strike a balance between conservation and economic development, formulation of legislation to enhance security of tenure, implementation of the existing legislation that enhance ownership of the land, especially the enactment of the Community Land Act 2016, and adaptation of the community-based strategies in management and resolution of the land conflict. That is my references, and thank you. Sorry for the network issue.
Much obliged. Thank you very much, Hussein. We must say you're quite persistent and you have presented your work quite well. For the next section is the discussant. I will be able to give a few comments, please, Hussein. Kindly note them down, and then we shall move on quickly to the question and answer section. Please let us have as many questions as possible for Mr. Hussein. Also, to address some of us, kindly let us disable our videos for those who are using their data bundles, that you do not deplete them. Hussein, your topic starts with, it is an assessment of land-based conflict in Tana River Delta. But within the reading, it seems more to focus on the drivers of conflict that arise from the land issues in Tana River. Maybe you could consider reworking on the topic. In terms of your introduction, it's not quite clear how the land-based conflicts arise. So maybe you add a little bit more on how these land issues or the land resources are bringing out issues to that bring out conflicts. Your problem statement focuses more on issues of communities and not on the land. So maybe you could try and show the nexus between the community and the land issues so that it brings out the what you're assessing, which is land-based conflicts. On the issues of objectives, your objectives focus on conflict management and not the land-based conflicts. On your literature review, most of your literature is on the drivers for land-based conflict and hardly any on the issues that touch on land-based conflict. On your conceptual framework, it is not quite clear where the issues are, what is the independent, what is the dependent, what are the enabling factors is not quite clear where what places where. On the issue of on your methodology, your captioning and the sources for your maps are not used. You're not referencing much of it. And again, when it comes to results, the demographics, the results you have shared now are more organized than that which are on your document. So I hope this will be adapted because then there was no correlation on how the different variables that you have tested and the results that you have presented. On your conclusion, it is not clear whether it was land-based conflict or the drivers to land-based conflict. That is where your focus was. Your recommendations could be made more concise and your references added or improved to be at least to include a 2020 reference. The latest that you have is on 2016. In general, you have a good paper. With a little bit of organization, we should be able to have a good weight in terms of how we manage land-based conflicts, more so on deltas and where there is natural resource on that aspect. So I would like to now open the floor for question and answers. We will be able to take 5 questions each, which Mr. Hussein will be able to write down and then answer each 5 questions until we exhaust. So please ask him as many questions so that we improve on his work and his thesis so that it becomes a solid proof as he presents it for further examination. So right now the floor is open for question and answer. Are there questions for Mr. Hussein?
Yes, could I comment, Dr.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Dr. Kanya.
Yes, I think Tana is an interesting area and is an area where conflict and the name are the same. And it's an interesting topic that Hussein has presented. 1 or 2 questions that would be interesting to find out is that, there's nothing called historical injustice. It's a very generalized term, unless you're able to break it down into socio, economic, or resource-based issues. And so it will be important for Hussein to be able to break down what are those specific issues. And again, when you talk about Tana Delta, I'm always very keen to define what is that delta. Is it up to Garzen? Geographically, where do you refer to? Because there's a misnomer when you talk about the Tana Delta, and then the Tana Delta including those floodplain up in Galzen. So that's another thing that maybe might be important for him to clarify what are those specific issues. Then when you talk about conflict have got a lot of ways of how they demonstrate themselves. Some of it could be underlying, some will be direct because of resources, some of them could be seasonal. And Tana Delta is an interesting area because a lot of land is owned by absentee landlords. And the people who sit on the land, but maybe it's not about their resources, but maybe mainly about livelihood. So I don't know how Hussein treats that particular aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tanya. I believe Hussein has noted that. Another question?
Can I ask a question, Dr.?
Please go ahead, Masura.
Hussein, I would like to know, on looking at your study, do you think that the Tana Delta case study can be generalized elsewhere in the country, or is it just a specific to that area?
Okay, thank you very much, Masura. Another one?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nyambura.
Hi, Dr. Bessie.
Okay, Caleb, let's have Nyambura, then you.
Yes, I don't know if I missed this part of the presentation, but I didn't hear too much about legislation and policies that informed this study, and I would like to know if there are any and how they affect land conflicts in his study area.
All right. Caleb?
Yes, my question was closely related to what Kawira or the previous speaker said. It's about what does the study portend for the scholarship around conflict and conflict studies? Or better still, what new is Hussein introducing with this study?
Okay.
I didn't find it maybe, especially under his problem statement.
All right, thank you. Hussein, would you like to answer that? The questions asked.
Let me start with the first one, which I think Professor Tanya had talked about it, on the historical land injustices. Remembering this is part of the Coast Province, Tana River and Tana River Delta and the Tana River County as a whole is part of Coast Province, and the presidents ideally talked about marginalization in terms of the neglection by the political class since independence, and then issues of rurality. These areas have been rural, and the communities, the development aspect is not that advanced. So basically, if you break it down, it can go to some socio-economic aspects of historical land injustice. Remembering also the land has not been delineated into ownership units where the communities don't have even title deeds, so they see this as a historical land injustice. And probably whatever you talked about the absentee landlords, it's also some of the landlords are not from the country. So the communities here say that maybe it's an historical land injustice because the locals feel like their land has been grabbed by absentee landlords, and there's no way they can do so that they can regain the land back. So basically, that is on historical land injustice I could comment on. On the Delta area coverage, I want to say geographically, we have even the political units of the Delta, which we are not interested in. What I'm interested in is the Ramsar site that was designated in 2012. That is 130,000 acres of the Tana River Delta. So basically, the conservationists now are focusing on the 130,000 acres of the Tana River Delta that encompasses the Ramsar site. That is key for restoration. On the other issue, which Masura addressed, in area-specific measures, we can adopt the conflict management strategies in other areas of the same potential and the same biodiversity component. I don't know if we have an area with the same level of biodiversity, but we can implement or we can use the strategies that we have identified here above as measures so that we can resolve the same conflict anywhere else. What Wangari asked about the legislation and policy, there are a lot of legislation on how we can use how these livelihood strategies can coexist within one another. First of all, we have the Tana Delta Land Use Plan that was prepared in 2012 by the county government and the NGOs and also the Office of the Prime Minister. And recently in 2016, there were issues of Community Land Act and its regulations of 2018, which identified a communal way of ownership of land through community land management committees. Establishment of the land management committee that are representative of communities so that communities can have ownership of this land and not as individuals. So that one is what we also recommended in our recommendation and said that we can maybe implement the Community Land Act and see if the communities can have their land back or can get access or ownership to their land so that they can have access to credit facilities or other financial institutions. Caleb, on what are my new ideas? I think the resolution strategies, what I'm trying to create is an amalgamation of strategies so that we can have ideas from the community and ideas from the CBOs and NGOs and the government so that we can create a leeway of having a resolution and management strategy that are focusing on communities and also had some aspect of the government. But now the government is just a spectator, but the communities can resolve themselves, can resolve the conflicts by themselves. Thank you. And those are my little comments.
All right, good. Hussein, do we have more questions? Yes. Yes, Mr. Musingi.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Musingi, Geography and Environmental Studies. Now, we had a student from your institute who did a PhD thesis, which was natural resource-based conflicts in Tana River County. This was Kipkemoi Shandrak, 2015. I've not heard him review this work, and I'm not sure whether his work is, your work, Hussein, is different from this one of Kipkemoi. So I'm worried about this. So, and this being work that has been just done recently, because that was 2015, which I supervised with Professor Nyamasio, I expected you at least to mention this work. So what is the difference between your work and this one of Kipkemoi Shandrak? Basically, and this was also natural resource-based conflicts in Tana River County. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Musingi. Another question? Do you have anyone else with a question before Hussein answers that? Okay. Hussein, kindly answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Musingi. And I know the work of Kipkemoi Shandrak 2017 on natural-based resources in Tana River County as a whole. Mine deals with land specifically as a natural resource. Kipkemoi dealt with natural resource-based conflicts, especially water, land, all the other natural resources. And the difference here is that he identified how the conflict has affected the ecosystem, the livelihoods, and how it happened. And basically, he wanted to know what are the effects of the natural resource-based conflicts. So basically, whatever we are adding on is now the resolution part, the resolution part of the conflict and management. When we identify these are the conflicts that are appearing, it is based depends on land and water and other natural resources. And now the question comes, what are the strategies we can resolve permanently? Because we have identified the existence of the conflict, but now the conflict keep on recurring every year, in and out. So as a scientist, what we are trying to know now is that what are the ways that we can solve these once and for all amicably. Thank you. But we will try and add more on the new ideas so that we can develop it as an improvement of whatever we had talked about. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hussein. Do we have more questions?
Maybe a comment from me.
Yes, Professor Mungai.
I want to begin by apologizing. I tried to join the webinar and I couldn't hear Hussein for one reason or the other. And so I have not listened to the entire presentation. But what Dr. Musingi has asked is very important. I don't know, Hussein, how you define what's a natural resource. One would expect that in your literature review, you reviewed the work of that PhD research and you identified important aspects which Shadrach did not address. I hope that is clear in your literature, the final part of the literature review. That is the gap you identified, and which becomes now your thesis work. Secondly, I know you have sent me the thesis. The answer you have given should feature amongst similar work done by other scholars. It should feature very well in your discussion of your results. And that way, then Dr. Musingi would not raise the question because that is very clear. Am I correct, Hussein? Have you done all that?
Yes, Prof.
Explain.
Okay, Prof. I've also included Kipkamoi et al. in my reference. Basically, the work was on building up of the issues that Kipkamoi raised on the natural resource-based conflict and how it happened and how it affected the livelihoods and how it has impacted on the different livelihoods such as education, healthcare provision. So basically what we are saying is that, what I was saying is that I have looked at his work, I also worked on it and even talked to him, and he was even adding value on how we can resolve and manage the conflict and how we will get the way we want. Thank you.
Okay.
We
have Professor Mungai, you wanted to ask more?
No, I can't because I didn't listen to. I can't ask any substantial, questions. But I was struck by the question from Dr. Musingi. Dr. Musingi, we will pay attention to that question to make sure that Hussein's work is new knowledge, not not repeating in different words what the supervised Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think that is very important that we don't duplicate work done earlier. So I'm happy, Professor, you are going to follow on that case. You are following it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you have more questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Nambura.
I wanted to know if Mr. Hussein found any role or any place of technology in resolving these land-based conflicts, especially technology like GIS, and if it can be useful in the questions he's trying to answer. And I also wondered, the presentation didn't have too many graphics in terms of maps, for example, even to describe the study area. I don't know if it's in his full report, but perhaps he can tell us if he intends to use more maps or technology to represent these conflicts.
All right. One more question before Hussein answers. All right, Mr. Hussein. Mr. Hussein.
Yes, can I comment on that, what Nyambura said?
Yes, yes.
The use of the technology, like the GIS, yes, technology can play a big role in the management or resolution of the same. The county government is also setting up a GIS lab that can be used to map out areas of livelihood and also create a spatial plan for the areas that are for human settlement. So this can help in mapping out where the communities, the pastoralists can maybe feed the animals, where the farms are, and where all the settlements are, so that we avoid the interactions between the varying livelihoods, so that every livelihood understands that this is where we can farm, this is where we can add our livestock, and this is where the corridors to the land, and also where we can conserve, so that we can use the GIS lab or the GIS to map out areas that we can conserve, and so that we can differentiate areas. On the graphics on the study area, most of the information is in the report. That's why I couldn't put everything on the presentation. And most of the literature review also was in the report, the main report. But we'll try and improve on the graphics.
All right. Thank you. Do we have more questions for Mr. Hussein?
Yes, Dr. Kadambi, could I comment?
Yes, Professor Malama, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Hussein, for the presentation. Mine is a comment, in addition to, of course, the very useful comments you have received. In terms of your discussion, you have presented results from various methods, and it will be quite interesting to link those results with the interpretation of what they mean. I think probably it could have been because of time or something that this may not have come out clearly. You may touch on one of your choice, the ones that you think bring out your results in a way that will be more convincing to the audience. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Do we have another question? Another question? All right. Mr. Hussein, would you like to comment?
Yes, Prof. That was just a comment, and I'll try link the results with the interpretation, and also with what the previous results are, maybe what the previous researchers identified. I will try to input. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any more questions for Hussein? Hussein, on the chat, George says, all right. Who is speaking?
Yes.
On the chat, you have a comment on issues of conflict association with education and the issue of prayer sessions being a priority for conflict resolution. So you could note down that.
Okay.
So are there more questions for Mr. Hussein? Okay. There being none, just a summary for you, Mr. Hussein. There is the issue of finding out where the land issues, being able to put out what the conflicts are and how they relate, the connecting your results so that they bring out the picture of what you're saying, the legislation or the laws or the regulations that are there that you need to point out or bring them out. Then also references that are relevant to your study and the methodology, maybe also having a concise recommendations so that they are able to fit in within your study scope. That is a summary of the comments we have had today. With that, I would like now to call on our director, Professor Mungai, to give short remarks on the SIP and why these webinars are very important for our students. Thank you very much, Mr. Hussein, for your presentation. Professor Mungai, the floor is yours.
What did you say? Sorry, I was talking to somebody.
We would like your concluding comments or statements.
Wow, I suspected that's what we are. Okay, now, thank you very much. I have not very much to talk about the presentation because I didn't really participate. But I would like to thank everybody who attended. I have seen, maybe it was a bit higher than what I have seen, up to 40 participants. I think we are very happy and proud of this. We have people from all, institutions and disciplines. We have Dr. Musingi, who is a very great supporter of the Institute. We really appreciate this. And I want to thank all people who have made comments, because the aim of these seminars is, first of all, to learn from the researcher about new knowledge that he or she has generated, but also secondly, because he's just about to submit his thesis, for the audience to give constructive comments that would improve the thesis. And I think this is working very well at the Institute. We are very happy, both at the M.Sc level and the PhD level. So I want to encourage everybody, please keep joining us. And we would like to reciprocate. If you have seminars in your departments, in your schools, please invite us. And I would like to request the Wangari Maathai Institute fraternity, both staff and students, let us reciprocate. If we are invited for a webinar by a student or staff member from any of the university departments, I think let us reciprocate, let us attend those webinars, and more importantly, let us make constructive, criticisms. Let us give, ideas that would improve that particular work. I think this is excellent. It is showing that the Institute is vibrant. It is also showing that we are open with the work that we do. It is showing that we are open to ideas. We don't know everything, and we become experts by learning from others. So I want to thank the presenter, Hussein Hanti. Sorry for the internet challenges. I think we had a bit of internet challenges. But again, this goes to emphasize the point I made during the last student webinar presentation, that when we know we are going to make a webinar presentation, or even a face-to-face presentation, let us prepare ourselves in advance. Let us assess, first of all, our presentation, whether it is good enough, whether it covers the scope of what we want to cover. whether the slides are legible, whether they are interesting, including the first, slide. You see the photos we put there, are they communicating something related to the work that's about to be presented? Let us also check a few other logistical issues like internet strength and stability, because the whole idea of having these webinars and having so many people coming it clearly shows an interest on the part of the participants to come and learn something new, either in terms of new knowledge that the research has generated, or even new ways or new methodologies of doing research in particular context. So I want to request our people at the Institute to look at all possible aspects of making a presentation and address them before the D-Day. That, Hussein, is not meant for you individually, it is for all of us. So I thank you. I thank your supervisors for leading you through the work. And we trust that you got useful comments that you are going to work on and that they will truly reflect in your thesis. Remember, these theses will go into the university library, which means that this is knowledge open to the whole world. And we would like people to learn, people who pick a thesis. We want people to learn something new that they didn't know before. And that's why Dr. Musingi's question is so important. We make sure that we are not, repeating things and producing information that was produced before. So I want to thank everybody and wish you a nice afternoon. Back to you, Dr. Zambi.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your comments. I believe they're well noted. Thank you. So we've gotten to the tail end of this webinar. I will kindly request Caleb to say a word of prayer, closing prayer, as we conclude this webinar.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Okay, let's bow down and pray. Father, Lord, in Jesus' name, come to this particular moment, Father. We thank you, and Father, for the session that you've granted to us. We pray, Father, even for the candidate, that whatever information that she has gotten from this session, Father, may he go a long way to enrich his document and his final work, Father. We pray, even Father, for the administration, that may they continue even organizing more and more of such sessions, Father, so that they enrich the WMI fraternity, Father, as we continue building our knowledge and skills. For in Jesus' name I do pray and believe.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Amen.
Zedi and Luke, your comments will be addressed by Hussein when he gets this recording. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
And Bessie, and who will prepare the minutes? Sorry, I may be asking an obvious question because we shall need minutes for the graduate school.
I don't know. I don't know that, Prof. We'll find out. I think we'll find out.
No, every seminar should have minutes because when we forward the, let me see. No, this is the proposal defense stage. I think for the M.Sc, this is okay. For the it may be different for the PhD. Prof. Madama, could you comment? We need minutes for this kind of seminar.
The minutes could be, because we are recording, I think that will be possible, though the graduate school may not necessarily require the minutes.
I think for our records as an institute, it is good to have both the recording and the minutes, because the minutes will be, shorter, just bringing the highlights of the presentation. So, Dr. Katambi, if you hadn't, I think I would request you if you can make use of the recording, kindly make minutes. And from now going forward, I think let us make minutes and put in our records. Thank you. That's okay, Bessie? Or she has signed out. Okay, goodbye everyone and have a nice afternoon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
umezima.